Judges, we saw 5 companies. I'm going to ask you which one you liked best, which one you'd be most likely to fund, work with, etc. We had Appconomy, Disconnect, Jibe, Daiquiri, and Hipmunk. Think for a second. Which one did you absolutely love most? Yossi Vardi, which one would you be most likely to angel invest in and fight for? Appconomy is a group product, Disconnect for privacy, Jibe for social jobs, Daiquiri making augmented reality our reality, and Hipmunk taking the agony out of everything, specifically flights. What do you think, Yossi? Which would you go for? Which did you like best?
First of all, I want to say that whatever I like best doesn't make any sense or any difference, you know, because it's all probability, and from seeing the presentation, there is no way to have any intelligent forecast what will happen. So I guess that we will base our selection either on the sympathy of the presenters or the sympathy of the space. Coming from where I'm coming, the thing which appealed to me the most is the group communications. I like the space. It's important, but it has all the issues which were mentioned. But I would like to suggest to all the other presenters that they shouldn't be discouraged if they're not coming first or second at this irrelevant judging.
Okay. Mr. Sachs.
I'd say the product that I would probably use myself would be Hipmunk, because I really liked the UI of how it displayed flight info. The product that I think would probably find the clearest place in the marketplace would be Disconnect, because I think it's got like a really clear value proposition to people who are interested in that. But I think the one that, if I was going to kind of take a flyer and invest, it would probably be Daiquiri, because I actually think this QR code stuff is really interesting, and I don't think they've nailed it yet, but they're in a very interesting area, and it seems pretty different than what other people are doing. So,
George, what did you think?
My vote's for Hipmunk.
Okay. Aaron.
I definitely vote for Hipmunk. I think the travel industry needs to be turned on its head. Everybody's doing it wrong, and they're the first ones to start to do it right.
Awesome. Kevin?
Yeah, I would say Hipmunk as well, and I would echo what Dave said about Daiquiri. I think there's a great potential in what he was describing to dazzle, and I think that's a very, very big part of the consumer world.
Dave? We know that you're the Simon Cowell of this group. Which one did you hate the least?
What'd you say?
Which one did you hate the least?
I think Hipmunk, based on the presentation, although I still feel like the feature differentiation is not so amazing. Right. I know a little bit about the team, so I'd probably bet based on that. I kind of agree with David Sachs. The Disconnect stuff and the QR code virtual reality are interesting, but I wasn't convinced based on the vision that, I mean, they're huge, like money down a rat hole on AR. Like, you know, yeah, somebody's going to win, but that's really low probability.
Very difficult spaces. Neil, what did you like?
I love Hipmunk, just the web-based version is amazing. I like Disconnect. I just think it's really hard to monetize unless you take it out of the browser, and that's a risky leap of faith.
Let me ask you guys this.
I have a question to the judges. How do you compare Hipmunk to Mahalo? Which is more appealing?
Oh, let's not get into that. Let's not make me part of the story. Let me ask you this. Disconnect and Daiquiri, we talked about, hey, maybe there's a very future-looking space. How many people think they're too far ahead, or are they in the zone of somebody's got to figure out privacy and somebody's got to figure out augmented reality? I mean, how do you look at that? Is this like a 5-year problem or a 2-year problem or a 3-year problem? How do you know, as an entrepreneur, for some of the entrepreneurs on the panel, yeah, you're too soon or too early? And how does it feel with those two specific areas, privacy and augmented?
I'm going to sound a little bit like taking what I said and turning around, but I think the question in privacy is to figure out who has to care about it. Previously, it wasn't Microsoft, it was Symantec and McAfee, and those were the buyers. It's unclear now who the buyers are. Google became the buyer for a while in the middle there. And I'm not sure if it's Facebook or, again, McAfee's going into the chip. I don't know if Symantec's going up or down. It's complicated to know who actually is the one that is the protector of the consumer, and that's the risk in that space. I think, and the QR codes, it's complicated.
I think the privacy stuff is here now as an opportunity to go after. I would say it's, for me, more obvious in the family and kids market than any place else. There's probably an opportunity in the enterprise market as well.
And this is one of your things, Dave. You like to really narrow the focus of products so they own something. So your advice to disconnect would be go after kids?
I mean, I'm a...
Or go after protecting kids?
Go after the kids.
But do you think kids
With
have
NAMBLA.
that much? Do you think kids have that much stuff on Facebook that's going to scare you if you share your pictures of opening Christmas presents? I just don't think kids
are you
have
married?
that- well, no, I'm
You're not married, yeah.
Right.
It's huge, absolutely fucking huge market opportunity. Talk to any mother of a child between the ages of 0 and 10, and that's pretty much all they ever think about, and you can sell anything to them. It's a huge ass market, and we're not really producing very good products for that right now. Pimp My Own stuff, Life 360, we're going after there. EcoMom, we're going after stuff there. I'm surprised there aren't more entrepreneurs going after this segment because the amount of dollars and the size of audience is huge. And I think it's just because the entrepreneurial audience is mostly single and male, and that's why.
Yossi?
Yeah, in 1993, I was presented a product which was the first one to enable to annotate Word documents with voice, which look not very interesting product, but the company which developed this failing product was Vocaltech, which invented voice over IP. So sometimes you mix the technology and the application. And when we talk about augmented reality, I don't think that the issue what these guys are showing right now is the significant thing. The technology will be very important. If they will be lucky, they will sooner or later zigzag into the right application. For that, they need money, they need time, and they need to be flexible. So when we judge their offering, I suggest we differentiate between the application that you may like or you may not like and the technology. Technology is going to be very significant, and these guys are in the early stage. And some people were earlier than them, but they have a shot. It's a long shot, but they have a shot.
Yeah, I think the AR stuff is kind of a red herring. I mean, I think that is too early, but what's not too early is doing cool things with QR codes, and that's the part that got me kind of interested, and they're not there yet, so I think the key is if they are flexible and willing to kind of thrash around, and I'll be able to find something really cool.
So the augmented reality is the sizzle, but the steak is the QR.
Yeah,
codes.
I think so.
I would agree with that. Lots of opportunities with QR codes and all these scanning devices.
But you've got to have an audience that has QR code readers, and what you were saying, if you've an audience like, yeah, exactly, you have it, but the people, you probably don't use the Yellow Pages and probably will not for the rest of your life. That's not an audience to target. Right. Kids are going to have a QR code reader. They're going to be early adopters.
Come on, dude, there's
and that's,
hundreds of millions of these devices.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of millions of those devices, but not hundreds of millions of installs.
What is Yellow Pages?
Readers.
Yeah,
That's the thing, is that people have to have that in order for that to take off. And if you look at something like Sticky Bits,
that'll be there.
Really cool idea, but hasn't quite caught on, partly because of that. And Microsoft tried to do the same thing with their own QR codes.
I'd give you $100 if in 2 years, 30% of the market doesn't have a QR code built into whoever's shipping the devices, probably more like 50%. That's a no-brainer.
George, how do you balance it as an early stage and later stage investor? We have Yossi who's saying, just give them money, give them time, let them work it out. You got Dave who's demanding focus and some application or vertical and a marketing strategy and a distribution strategy, very demanding. You guys have a ton of money, invest small and big amounts. How do you reconcile those two different philosophies? Where do you stand?
In regards to the specific company?
Just on a philosophical basis when looking at technologies, do you demand the the focus that Dave McClure is looking for in a vertical, or
I
are you
mean,
more
I'm
Yossi
a small
Vardy
fund, so I
approach?
have to be more tactical. I think
Yeah.
George and other people who run large funds can invest in IP and give them longer runway to come up with bigger ideas.
Yeah.
But I tend to like things more along Dave's route, which is I like stuff that's more focused and easier, where you can create a beachhead pretty quickly. I was in the founding team of the company that coined the term virtual reality in 1989, and I can tell you that we were way too early for the market. And I remember a lot of our demos remind me of the Daiquiri demos. And I was like, look how cool it is. Will you buy our system for $150,000? Because that's how much money we need to get from you to keep our doors open. And it was a hard business to pull off. I didn't like the combination of both. I'd love to see them go down the QR route and be more specific.
I think if you want to understand the power of augmented reality on current platforms, you should look at Layer.
Yeah.
And then it's becoming very obvious, what you can do on today on phones and tomorrow on iPad and the day after tomorrow on television.
I totally agree with that. I just think they gave a bad demo of the augmented reality stuff.
I agree with that, George. And this is Jose Cavalier from the group Creative here in the panel. It's one thing that we're missing completely that no one's talking about, and I have it in my scoring, that the Creative was pretty bad on both their identity, but also on the demo of the train. I couldn't even see it. I know for a fact, because I've met with them, that Disney's trying to figure out how to deal with their cards and their print and all that stuff in the digital space, and they haven't figured it out yet, even though they're getting their pie taken away. It's a huge marketplace. The issue is that it's not about the technology. If you think about it, then you're in the wrong space about artwork.
Quick comment, Brian Alfie?
Yep. Hey, so on the augmented reality thing, I completely agree about it's not on your phones yet. I don't have one on my phone. There's a guy I met with, I think it was the CEO of ScanBuy, and they said down in like Mexico, there are these Java-based handsets and everybody has them, and the bus stops all have QR codes to tell you when the next bus is coming. So it's actually going to be built into phones, like Dave was saying, it's going to be everywhere. But I think what they're missing on this specific app is nobody's going to download this app to go do this thing. They're going to already have a Disney app, or it's got to be built into their damn phone, or they're not going to use it to do anything. So this to me is a plugin that goes to somebody else's app, kind of like barcode scanners. That's not an app. That's a feature of someone else's app. QR scanners will be the same thing.
Or it'd have to be something more viral, right? Like a game,
Yeah,
right? If it was a game, then I think you might get viral distribution of that app because oh, cool, I can go to the local corner 7-Eleven store, scan this QR code, and play a 3D game where I get 10% off if I get a high score, right? Or if I beat the guy next to me. That's actually kind of an interesting use case.
Let me ask a final question to the panel. I heard over and over again, Hipmunk, amazing UI, beautiful design, and then
good UI, not necessarily amazing UI.
Okay, I heard.
Just the rest of the field is shit, so that's why it's good.
Okay, so given that you didn't Disconnect was also very well designed, but Daiquiri, you guys were sort of, and the group app, you guys were kind of dogging a little bit. How much and why does it seem that people who are investors care so much about the design, the logo design? Isn't that superficial to care about that? Should we care about the underlying?
Not at all.
It is, but this is the only thing we can really understand.
It's not superficial, but it's not superficial. Seriously, design, I don't want to say it's everything, but you could arguably make the case that design is more important than the technology in most consumer apps.
Well, also, I think the design is also a kind of a proxy for how focused the product is. And if the design's kind of all over the place, it means they haven't really figured out exactly what their product is. And I think that was kind of the problem with the group's product and maybe the
So in a way, it's
the
a red
augmented reality
flag.
product.
If you can't get your logo, if you can't get your UX, user experience down, the company might be lost in terms of their business process or just might not be good executors.
People want to know how to interact with the product. Products are people too. The design is what creates that personality that people connect with, and that's a huge part of the way people make decisions is through emotion and not just through logic, whether or not it does a task.
The difference between Yodlee and Mint was not necessarily the technology. It was much more the design than it was the technology, in my opinion.
But I think it's, people need to be able to go to your website and, immediately kind of grok what it does in, 5 seconds. If they can't figure out what this is about, they're just going to kind of move on.
So this is great feedback for the future entrepreneurs who will be on stage next year. Great logo, great design, great domain name, great user interface. We're going to take a 15-minute break. Let's hear it for our judges and for the companies. And we'll be back with a really great afternoon session. The